Small cars were all the rage in the early 1980s, with more choices than ever, and as sales were fairly strong, they would change company reputations for both better and worse. The Chevrolet Chevette is a prime example, receiving a facelift for 1980 and selling an incredible $440,000 for the year. Priced at only $4,100 to $4,700, it was 162 to 167 inches long on a 94 to 97 inch wheelbase, weighing 1,900 to 2,000 pounds. Its 1.6 liter produced 70 to 74 horsepower. It could do 100 miles an hour and a high 18-second quarter mile, and was rated at 26 and 36 miles per gallon, city and highway. Pontiac got a version of the Chevette in 1981 as the T1000, although it had appeared earlier in other markets as the Acadian. Prices were higher, starting between $5,400 to $5,500, and sales for the year were $70,000. Ford introduced the Escort in America for 1981. First-year U.S. sales were $320,000, but it was soon a bestseller. Prices started at $5,200 to $6,800 on a car that was 169 inches long on a 94-inch wheelbase and weighed 2,000 to 2,100 pounds. Power initially came from a 1.6 liter with 65 horsepower, for a top speed near 95 and a mid-19-second quarter mile, and an average of 35 miles per gallon. The Mercury version was called the Lynx and was generally slightly better equipped, with prices from $5,600 to $7,100, and its first year of sales were just over $110,000. Developed by Chrysler of Europe, the Plymouth Horizon was introduced in 1978. The four-door hatchback was 165 inches long on a 99-inch wheelbase and weighed around 2,100 pounds. In 1980, it cost $5,500, was powered by a Volkswagen 1.7 liter providing 65 horsepower, with sales for the year of $95,000. The quarter mile was just under 20 seconds, top speed was near 95, and it averaged 27 miles per gallon. The Dodge version was called the Omni, and in 1981 started using an in-house 2.2 liter producing 84 horsepower. Weight was up about 100 pounds, and prices range from $5,300 to $5,700. It could top 100 miles an hour, do a high 18-second quarter mile, and average 30 miles per gallon. Sales for the year were just over $40,000. The AMC Spirit ran through 1983, and this Gremlin replacement was 167 inches long on a 96-inch wheelbase, weighing 2,600 to 2,700 pounds. In 1980, it was priced from $5,600 to $6,000, and sales were $20,000. Engines were the 2.5-liter Pontiac Iron Duke, or AMC's own 4.2-liter straight six, for 82 or 110 horsepower. With the 6 and a 5-speed, it was a mid-17-second car, reaching near 110 miles an hour and averaging 26 miles per gallon. Chevrolet replaced the sporty Monza in 1982 with the front-wheel drive Cavalier, and rapid inflation had the cars at $6,300 to $8,300. It was 174 to 178 inches long on a 101-inch wheelbase, weighing 2,300 to 2,400 pounds. First-year sales were $195,000, but it would soon be a top seller. The Pontiac version was called the J2000, but the Sunbird name would soon return to it. A bit pricier at $7,000 to $7,700, but first-year sales were still $120,000. The poorest selling of the group was the Oldsmobile Forenza, priced from $7,400 to $8,100. First-year sales were under $30,000. All were initially powered by an 88 horsepower 1.8 liter, although bigger, more powerful engines were quick to appear. The Buick Skyhawk was $7,500 to $7,900, or about $100 less than the Skylark of the same year. Sales for the year were just under $50,000, but like the others, it did a 19-second quarter mile and near 105 miles an hour, with an average of 31 miles per gallon. For 1980, Chevrolet replaced the Nova with the much smaller yet more expensive Citation, priced from $4,800 to $5,700. The front-wheel drive car came in coupe and 2- or 4-door hatchback. They were 177 inches long on a 105-inch wheelbase and weighed 2,400 to 2,500 pounds. In addition to the base model, there was a sporty X11 package as well, with first-year sales exceeding $830,000. The Pontiac Phoenix was a bit more formal and upmarket, and priced from $5,500 to $6,100, with sales under $180,000. Initially, engines included a 90 horsepower 2.5 liter inline 4 and an 115 horsepower 2.8 liter V6, which could be a mid-17 second car with a top speed over 110. The mid-market brands like the Oldsmobile Omega didn't get hatchback versions, sticking to the more formal notchbacks, but prices remained in the $5,500 to $6,000 range, for sales just under $140,000, while the Buick Skylark saw first-year sales of nearly $300,000, partially due to a lower base price, ranging from $5,300 to $6,000. And the V6 would quickly gain power, with 125 and 135 horsepower versions, for a sub-17 second quarter mile and speeds around 115 miles an hour. Plymouth replaced the Volare with the Reliant in 1981, priced from $5,900 to $7,300, 179 inches long on a 110-inch wheelbase, and 2,300 to 2,400 pounds, and introducing the 2.2-liter, initially with 82 horsepower and averaging 30 miles per gallon. It did around 100 miles an hour, the quarter mile in under 19 seconds with the 4-speed, and first-year sales were over $150,000. The Dodge K-Car was the all-but identical Aries, costing $6,000 to $7,200, and also selling over $150,000. And it also used the same engines, including the 2.2-liter and a Mitsubishi 2.6-liter with 92 horsepower, which was automatic only. But soon the 2.2-liter was offered with more power and a 5-speed, putting it in the mid-18s. Ford continued to offer the Fairmont through 1983, by which time it was seeming outdated. But priced from $6,000 to $6,700, it appeared to be quite the value, and still managed $125,000 in sales its last full year. It was 196 inches long on a 106-inch wheelbase, and weighed 2,600 to 2,900 pounds. The Mercury version was called the Zephyr, which started the decade at only $5,000 to $5,400 and $90,000 in annual sales. Engines included a 2.3-liter 4 with available turbo, a 3.3-liter straight 6, and a 4.2-liter V8, with horsepower ranging from 88 to 119, with top versions exceeding 100 miles an hour and managing a low 19-second quarter mile. Chrysler would get its own version of the K-Car in 1982 as the LeBaron, costing $8,100 to up to $12,000 for the soon-to-be best-selling convertible version, with over $70,000 in total sales. It was 180 inches long on a 100-inch wheelbase and around 2,500 pounds, with the 2.2 and 2.6-liter 4s with 84 to 92 horsepower. And Cadillac also introduced the Cimarron in 1982 as a luxury version of the J-Car, starting at $12,000, 173 inches long on a 101-inch wheelbase, and weighing 2,600 pounds, using the same 88 horsepower 1.8-liter, and selling over $25,000 its first year, a mid-19-second car with a top speed near 105. In Britain, Reliant replaced the 3-wheeled Robin with the 3-wheeled Rialto, only 134 inches long on an 85-inch wheelbase, and weighing less than 950 pounds. Its 40 horsepower 850cc inline 4 could almost move the car to 80 miles an hour, and did the quarter mile in the high 18s. The Mark IV Mini carried through the period, still 120 inches long on an 80-inch wheelbase, and 1,400 pounds. With 40 to 43 horsepower, the 1-liter 4 provided a top speed of 80 miles an hour, a quarter mile under 21 seconds, and an average of 38 miles per gallon. The Vauxhall Chevette was little more than a previous generation Opel Kadett with revised styling. It was 155 to 165 inches long on a 94-inch wheelbase, weighing 1,900 to 2,000 pounds. Power came from a 1.3-liter inline 4 with 49 to 58 horsepower, giving it an advertised top speed of 90 miles an hour. The Ford Fiesta was 144 to 146 inches long on a 90-inch wheelbase, and 1,600 to 1,800 pounds. Engines came in 1, 1.1, 1.3, and 1.6 liters, with 40 to 83 horsepower. An XR2 was a mid-17-second car, capable of around 105 miles an hour, while the base model averaged 33 miles per gallon. In France, changes were minimal. The Citroën LNA was a more powerful update to the LN. It was 134 inches long on an 88-inch wheelbase and weighed 1,600 pounds. Power came from a 650cc boxer twin that produced 36 horsepower. For a quarter mile just over 22 seconds, a top speed near 80, and an average of 33 miles per gallon. The Talbot Samba cost 60,000 French francs, was 138 inches long on a 92-inch wheelbase, and weighed 1,600 pounds. Offered with a 1 or 1.1 liter overhead cam inline 4 with 44 to 50 horsepower, it could do nearly 90, the quarter mile in under 20 seconds, and average 35 miles per gallon. The Simca 1100 had become the Talbot 1100. It was 155 inches long on a 99-inch wheelbase and 2,000 pounds, and it got 57 horsepower from its inline 4 for a quarter mile just over 21 seconds and a top speed of 85 miles an hour. Peugeot's 104 got another facelift in 1982, being 142 inches long on a 95-inch wheelbase and 1,700 pounds. The combined city-highway cycle put it at 30 miles per gallon. Engines were a 1, 1.1, 1.2, or 1.4 liter, producing 44 to 71 horsepower for the quarter mile in 18 seconds and a top speed of 100 miles an hour. The Renault 9, or Alliance, was sold through American Motors in the U.S. for $5,600 to $6,900. It was 160 inches long on a 98-inch wheelbase, being 1,800 to 1,900 pounds, with either an 1,100 or 1,400 for 48 to 71 horsepower and 36 miles per gallon. A GTS was a low 18-second car capable of 100 miles an hour. The Renault 5, known in the U.S. as Le Car, was roughly 140 inches long on a 95-inch wheelbase and weighed 1,600 to 1,900 pounds. Engine choices ran through 850, 950, 1,100, and 1,400 cc's with an available turbo, giving it 36 to 109 horsepower. The base model got 32 miles per gallon, and the turbo could do nearly 120 miles an hour and a mid-16-second quarter mile. The Seat Fiera of Spain was based on the 3rd Series Fiat 127, but it lasted longer. As such, it was 146 inches long on an 88-inch wheelbase and weighed 1,600 to 1,700 pounds. Most used a 900cc inline 4 with 42 horsepower, but the sporty Chrono had a bigger 1.4 liter with 74 horsepower for a mid-17-second quarter mile and a top speed near 100 miles an hour. In Germany, the Trabant 601 carried on. It was still 140 to 142 inches long on an 80-inch wheelbase and about 1,400 pounds. The 600cc two-stroke twin produced 26 horsepower for speeds over 60 miles an hour, while the Volkswagen Polo Mark II was 144 inches long on a 92-inch wheelbase and 1,500 pounds. Initially with a 1 or 1.1 liter with 40 to 50 horsepower, it averaged 33 miles per gallon, having a claimed top speed of 91 miles an hour. The Opel Kadett D was also the Vauxhall Astra, which started at 3,400 pounds. They were 157 inches long on a 99-inch wheelbase and weighed 1,800 to 1,900 pounds. Initially offered with a 1, 1.2, or 1.3 liter with 40 to 74 horsepower. An SR hatchback was a low 18-second car capable of near 100 miles an hour and averaged 27 miles per gallon. The Ford Escort was called a world car, but European versions were only somewhat related to what was sold in America. Their length was 156 to 159 inches long on a 94-inch wheelbase, weighing 1,700 to 1,900 pounds. The base model averaged 31 miles per gallon, and engine options were 1.1, 1.3, or 1.6 liter, with 54 to 95 horsepower. An XR3 took just over 17 seconds for the quarter mile, with a top speed over 110. BMW's first generation 3 Series ran until 1983. It was 178 inches long on a 101-inch wheelbase and weighed 2,500 pounds. In spite of the designations, power came from a 1.6 or 1.8 liter with 74 to 101 horsepower, making for an 18.5-second quarter mile and over 105 miles an hour. Audi's 80 started the decade at 173 inches long on a 100-inch wheelbase and 2,000 pounds. Engines were 1.3, 1.6, or 1.7 liters, providing 54 to 109 horsepower, moving it to nearly 105 miles an hour and a quarter mile under 18 seconds. The Mark I Volkswagen Golf, or Rabbit, carried through the period and well beyond as the convertible, and it had been joined by a notchback version called the Jetta. U.S. models were 153 to 168 inches long on a 95-inch wheelbase and 2,000 to 2,200 pounds, using a 1.6-liter diesel with 52 to 68 horsepower, or a 65 to 74 horsepower 1.7-liter, or 90 horsepower 1.8-liter, although European spec versions could have up to 110 horsepower, for a claimed top speed of 108. The Mercedes 190 was a bit of a latecomer, hitting the U.S. market at $24,000 and being 174 inches long on a 105-inch wheelbase and 2,400 pounds. The 2-liter 4 produced 89 to 121 horsepower for an 18-second quarter mile and a top speed over 110 miles an hour. In Italy, the Fiat Panda was 133 inches long on an 85-inch wheelbase and weighed 1,600 pounds, initially with a 650cc twin or a 900cc inline 4. Horsepower was 30 or 44, with the base model averaging 32 miles per gallon, and the top model doing 85 miles an hour, and the quarter mile just over 20 seconds. But it would soon get bigger engines and four-wheel drive. The Auto Bianchi A112 was 127 inches long on an 80-inch wheelbase and 1,400 pounds, using a 903 or 965cc inline 4 for 42 or 48 horsepower and 32 miles per gallon. But the 1150cc Abarth version had 69 horsepower, could do almost 100 miles an hour, and ran the quarter mile in the high 17s. Fiat's Ritmo Second Series of 1982 was lighter, smoother, and quieter. It was 158 inches long on a 96-inch wheelbase and 1,800 to 2,100 pounds. Power came from an 1100, 1300, 1500, or a 1700 diesel, providing 54 to 81 horsepower. An 85 Super was a mid-17-second car with a top speed near 105, while the 65 speed averaged 33 miles per gallon. The Alfa Romeo Alfa Sud continued through 1983, by which point it was 157 inches long on a 97-inch wheelbase and 2,000 pounds. It used a 1.2, 1.3, or 1.5-liter Boxer 4 with 62 to 94 horsepower, reaching nearly 110 miles an hour, doing a low 17-second quarter mile. The Lancia Delta got a facelift for 1982. It was 183 inches long on a 97-inch wheelbase, weighed 2,100 pounds, and averaged 28 miles per gallon. Engines came in 1.3, 1.5, or 1.6 liter, with 74 to 103 horsepower, for a mid-17-second quarter mile and a top speed over 110. The Czech Skoda Type 742 First Series, or 105 and 120, ran until 1983. They were 164 inches long on a 95-inch wheelbase and weighed 2,000 pounds. They could average 30 miles per gallon, exceed 90 miles an hour, and do the quarter mile in 20 seconds, with power coming from a 1 or 1.2 liter, producing 45 to 57 horsepower. From Romania, the Oldsit Club was perhaps better known as the Citroen Axle. It was 147 inches long on a 93-inch wheelbase and weighed 1,800 to 1,900 pounds and used a 650 or 1,100cc engine, giving it 33 to 56 horsepower, a top speed near 95 miles an hour, a quarter mile time of 20 seconds, and an average of 32 miles per gallon. The Soviet Union had the ZAZ 968M, being 148 inches long on an 85-inch wheelbase and weighing 1,900 pounds. It had a 1,200cc V4 with 50 horsepower for a claimed top speed of over 80 miles an hour, while the four-wheel drive VAZ 2121, or Lada Niva, was 147 inches long on an 87-inch wheelbase and 2,500 pounds. Its 1.6-liter overhead cam engine produced 75 horsepower for speeds over 80 miles an hour. In Sweden, the Volvo 345 was 167 inches long on a 94-inch wheelbase and 2,300 pounds. It used a 1.4-liter Renault inline-4 with 63 to 69 horsepower for an average of 26 miles per gallon, or their own 2-liter with 94 horsepower for speeds near 105 miles an hour. The Saab 99 was made until 1984, 176 inches long on a 97-inch wheelbase, weighing 2,500 pounds. Its 2-liter inline-4 produced 99 horsepower for a quarter mile under 18 seconds and a top speed over 110. The Holden Chimera was the Australian version of GM's J-Car, introduced in 1982, 172 to 173 inches long on a 101-inch wheelbase, and weighing 2,300 to 2,400 pounds. Its 1.6-liter 4 produced 86 horsepower for an 18.5-second quarter mile and speeds over 105 miles an hour. In Korea, the Hyundai Pony went into its second generation in 1982, 157 to 159 inches long on a 92-inch wheelbase. It weighed 2,000 to 2,200 pounds and was powered by a 1.2 or 1.4-liter Mitsubishi-sourced 4 with 64 or 74 horsepower. It could do the quarter mile in 19.5 seconds, nearly reach 95 miles an hour, and average 29 miles per gallon. In Japan, the first-generation Suzuki Servo ran through 1982. It was 126 inches long on a 55-inch wheelbase and 1,200 to 1,400 pounds. Its 539cc inline 3 produced 27 horsepower for 41 miles per gallon and over 70 miles an hour. There was a new front-wheel drive Subaru Rex for 1981. It was still 126 inches long, but wheelbase was up to 89 inches, and weight was 1,200 pounds. The 544cc Boxer Twin produced 31 horsepower for speeds over 70 miles an hour, and a quarter mile just over 22 seconds. The first-generation Daihatsu Charade was made through 1983, 136 to 139 inches long on a 91-inch wheelbase, and 1,400 to 1,600 pounds. The 1-liter inline 3 provided 51 to 59 horsepower for nearly 90 miles an hour, a quarter mile just over 19 seconds, and an average of 31 miles per gallon. The Honda City was introduced in 1981. It was 133 to 135 inches long on an 87-inch wheelbase and 1,400 pounds, with a 60 to 62 horsepower 1.2-liter overhead cam inline 4. It was rated at 45 miles per gallon and could include a 50cc Moto Compo fold-away scooter. A new Toyota Tercel arrived in 1982 for just under $5,000. On a 96-inch wheelbase, it was 153 to 159 inches long and weighed 2,000 to 2,100 pounds, with a 1.3 or 1.5 liter with 64 to 70 horsepower, or in the U.S., just the 1.5 liter with 60 to 62 horsepower, for a claimed 98 miles an hour and 36 miles per gallon. For 1982, the Datsun Sunny would also be the new Nissan Sentra, starting at $5,000. It was on a 95-inch wheelbase, 159 to 172 inches long, and 1,600 to 2,000 pounds, depending on the market. The 1.5 liter provided 67 to 74 horsepower and 28 to 33 miles per gallon. The fourth-generation Toyota Corolla was 159 to 167 inches long on a 95-inch wheelbase and 1,700 to 2,200 pounds, and started at $5,200. Engines were 1.3, 1.5, or 1.6 liters, with 59 to 113 horsepower, for more than 110 miles an hour, except U.S. models that used a 1.7 liter with 70 to 75 horsepower and averaged 30 miles per gallon. The second-generation Honda Civic hit the market in 1980. Prices ranged from $3,700 to $5,600. On an 89 to 91-inch wheelbase, it was 148 to 161 inches long and 1,600 to 1,900 pounds, in a variety of body styles, offered with either a 1.3 or 1.5 liter with 44 to 79 horsepower for nearly 95 miles an hour, a mid-19-second quarter mile, and an average of 30 miles per gallon, or a tested 28 to 35. The third-generation Daihatsu Charmant of 1981 was based on the Toyota Corolla. It was 163 to 168 inches long on a 95-inch wheelbase and weighed 1,900 to 2,000 pounds, using the 1.3 and 1.5 liter engines with 73 to 79 horsepower for the mid-18s and 100 miles an hour. The Isuzu iMark, or Gemini, was previously sold in the U.S. as a Buick. The early 80s version was 171 inches long on a 94-inch wheelbase and weighed 2,300 pounds. Power came from a 1.8-liter diesel or gas engine with 51 or 80 horsepower for speeds near 100 miles an hour and a mid-19-second quarter mile. The Mazda Familia 323 was in its fifth generation for 1980, coming to the U.S. a year later as the new GLC. It was 156 to 159 inches long on a 93-inch wheelbase and weighed 1,800 to 1,900 pounds, with a 1.1, 1.3, or 1.5 liter with 54 to 84 horsepower. For a 33 mile per gallon average, speeds near 105, and a high 17-second quarter mile. The Mitsubishi Mirage was sold under several names, including Colt, Champ, and Lancer, with prices ranging from $3,000 to $6,000. 149 to 163 inches long on a 91 or 94-inch wheelbase, and weighing 1,700 to 2,000 pounds. Powered by a 1.2, 1.4, or 1.6 liter with 71 to 86 horsepower. A GT could nearly do 100 miles an hour and do the quarter mile in just under 18 seconds. The Datsun Cherry had become the Pulsar in many markets, with the American versions being the biggest and heaviest. It can be 156 to 162 inches long on a 95-inch wheelbase and weighed from 1,700 to 2,000 pounds. It was powered by a 1.3, or 1.5 liter with 50 to 94 horsepower, making for a quarter mile in the high 17s, a top speed around 105 miles an hour, and road tests with 24 to 32 miles per gallon. Soon, the average of the entire segment would be rethought, creating some confusion in the market. So as always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment below and like and subscribe.